Welcome, everybody. Really excited to go over the goalkeeping development roadmap today. It's a little bit of a special presentation in that we have an expert here in Paul Blodgett, which Coach Paul recently spent a lot of time writing a book about the development roadmap of goalkeepers, and we're going to get into that. Before we get into that, just a quick introduction. My name is Chad Prickett. I'm the director of goalkeeping for Ohio Premier Soccer Club here in Columbus, Ohio. I also coach the men and women's goalkeepers for Ohio Wesleyan University, which is a D3 school. Then most of my goalkeeping is with Columbus Goalkeeper Academy, which is my goalkeeper academy, started about 4 or 5 years ago now. And the last piece, like Eric, proud board member of the United Goalkeeping Alliance. Paul?
Yeah, hi, everybody. Paul Blodgett from Flemington, New Jersey. Hope everybody's doing great. I'm the owner of my own goalkeeper school, which I've had since 2002. I'm with the New Jersey ODP. I'm the goalkeeper technical director for both the boys and the girls for the state of New Jersey. And I was formerly a goalkeeper coach, assistant coach at Rutgers University men's program, for over 20 years. And then I moved on to the College of New Jersey women's team, the Division III level, for 14 seasons. And I was very fortunate to be able to work with two very highly regarded programs, one on the men's side and one on the women's side. Presently, I work with John Blodgett at Modern Goalkeeper Training Systems. I'm one of the technical directors and director of coaching there for goalkeeper coaches development. And I also work with PDA, the big club here in Jersey, and some other jobs here and there. But it's all goalkeeping in my life, and I love it. It's glad to be here.
All right, guys. So kind of like what Eric was talking about earlier, if you guys have a question at any time, I want you to hop on and ask questions, okay? I want this to be very interactive. Don't hesitate, all right? Get something out of this. Make sure if you do have questions, you get on it. So roadmap, all right? So what we're talking about is from U8 to you're leaving to go to college. What does that development pathway look like? And again, so Paul recently wrote a book, which is coming out soon, getting into a lot of details in this year-to-year transition. So what we're going to hit on specifically is like U8 or your introductory age. And then we're going to get into U10, technical focus, U12, commitment, U14, transition into the adult level, then the U16 through U18, and that's just that huge critical development period. We're going to dig into these a little bit. Paul, you got anything on that?
Yeah, I think it's important for everybody to understand that there is a progression. And the progression needs, if you want to master the position, it's a time-honored position. It takes time to master. And if you start up at the U8 level, for example, and you don't really do your due diligence and learn what you're supposed to learn at that age group, and then you jump on the U10 age group without mastering what you're supposed to have learned in the U8 age group, you're going to be behind. And subsequently the same with the passing on to the U12 and the U14 and the U16, U18. It's kind of like going through school. You're not going to get to 7th grade unless you pass 6th grade and that kind of thing. So, and you'll see we broke it down into 5 age groups. And the reason why it's a U16 through U18, because basically when you reach that level, whether you're 16, 17, or 18 years old, at that level, you're all going to be working on the same types of things. It's just the intensity, the level of commitment, and the mastering of the tactical portions of the game, so that you can go on to the next level, which is hopefully either college or even professional level. So.
All right, so focusing on U8. Paul, do you want to hit on the mission of the U8 age group?
Yeah, sure. And this is important. First of all, what I have found over my years of doing this is that some kids at 8, want to jump into be in the position. Some kids are forced into the position. And I think by forcing anybody into position at this age is a mistake, because it's very difficult position to try and play at that age group. First of all, U8, you really shouldn't have a goal anyway. You should not be playing with a goal, but you should start learning the basics of the position, which is more or less your footwork, basic low ball catching, communication, basic distribution. Everything is on a complete basic level. And a lot of kids get into it because they can't play on the field, and they want to be a part of the team, and they jump into goal and they have success at it, and therefore they take an affection towards the position and want to play it. And the parents kind of push the kids in, do it for the same reasons sometimes. They see their kid enjoying it, and they said, okay, since he can't really play on the field very well, he likes the position, let's support him and help him become a goalkeeper. The mistake is that a player at this age should not just focus solely on a position. That's the mistake. They need to play on the field and experiment with the goalkeeping position. That's the way I like to look at it. Don't have them be the goalkeeper and experiment with the field player position for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's too difficult to play. This position takes a great deal of technical development, leadership, communication. There's so many facets to the position that to try and have a U8 player understand all that, when all they really want to do is have fun and be a part of something. So that's the approach anybody should have in directing their kids to playing the position, or to what the coach should do in teaching them the position is basics and have fun. That's what it should be all about. It's important that they learn how to play the game, because if they don't learn how to play the game and they're stuck strictly as a goalkeeper at this age, they're not going to be able to reach their potential as quickly on later as they get older, because you have to learn. Today's goalkeeper is a complete player, and you have to be good with your feet. You have to understand the game. You have to be able to distribute the ball. You have so many different things you have to do that field players have to do, plus keep the ball out of the net and lead a team. It's by just having the kid at this age go strictly in the goal and do nothing else is a disservice, and it's going to hurt. And it's going to hurt their development.
So, Paul, my question for you would be:
sure.
If, let's say, a team coach, or if a kid has access to a goalkeeper coach at U8, what are some things that you would want them doing that's goalkeeper specific?
Okay, good question. I would have them work on foot skills, and what I mean by foot skills would be things with the ball, passing, receiving, 2 touches, dribbling, those kinds of things. Goalkeeping positional wise, very simple handling, all low ball stuff. Balls on the ground, maybe balls knee height, because these kids at that age, there's no way they can catch a ball. Their hand-eye coordination does not exist at that point. They actually are very fearful of a ball coming at their faces. So you should stay away from everything that's high. And some basic collapsing to the left or to the right can be taught. But it's all about games. Play a lot of little games with them where they're moving the ball, rolling the ball to each other, a little handball type of game if it's possible. Don't have restrictive as far as spacing. Let them use as much space as they want, because they don't really understand what spacing is all about. So tag games, dribble and pass, steal the ball from each other, fun stuff. Okay, because if the kids come out of practice with this age group and they're not having fun about doing it, then they're going to be turned off to the position. And the one thing, when I first started coaching, I stayed away from U8s and U9s, to be honest with you, because I thought it was too young to teach a position, especially since the federation doesn't really want kids playing in a goal in that age anyway. So, but what happened was parents were coming up and saying, "Listen, my son or daughter wants to play. They're 8 years old, they're 9 years old." And I said, well, listen, if they're going to want to learn the position, it's better that somebody who knows how to teach it should teach them, instead of just having somebody coming in not knowing what to do and just ripping balls at these kids. Because one of the problems, and this is something that's very important for parents to understand, as well as the kids, you can get hurt. Your bones and muscles are they're growing, they're developing. Broken wrists are very common because the kids are afraid of the ball and they're putting their hands back in a compromised position. So when the ball hits it, it bends their wrist backwards and what they call a buckle fracture. Matter of fact, it's the most common injury for kids. So all these things have to be taken into consideration. So I used to use a lot of foam balls, to be honest with you. The kids learn not to be afraid of the ball at that point. Small balls, you can't use a regular number 5 ball. You got to get balls at appropriate the age group of the kids, and just do a lot of passing, catching, rolling, bowling, using their feet, dribbling, those kinds of things. And then don't put them in games with goals, unless you want to do a little something like a beginner goalie war type of thing where they could just compete against each other a little bit, because the kids, even at that age, love to compete. So those are the types of things I think it should be concentrated on.
So the takeaway for me, it's having fun.
Yeah.
Working with the feet, and then anything goalkeeper specific, maybe keep that primarily to low balls.
Exactly. Now, another thing here, and I see that in the lessons, which is a very important point, is teaching a basic set position. I think that is incredibly important. I always like going into a new group of kids, like say if you have 6 or 8 kids, and first thing I always ask them, let me see your set position. You got 8 kids, guess what? You're going to see 8 different set positions. So that is one of the cornerstones of being a goalkeeper is your set position. So teach them a basic, traditional set position, nothing fancy, not the K-save, not the blocking stuff. Don't get them into any of that, because first of all, it's too dangerous. It's too complicated for them to learn. Just have a basic, traditional set position that they learn and master. And then when they get older, you can start advancing different types of set positions for different situations.
Perfect. All right. So after U8, again, fun, and I think you'll hear fun a decent amount in the early age groups. So getting into U10 guys, for me in like the coach's role for a 10-year-old, again, like what Paul highlighted before, like I'm going to focus on fun. That's got to be a priority for me from a coaching standpoint in order for the kids to want to come back. And then building a little bit on what Paul said, like, look, we have to have the set position in place. We're going to continue to develop from a foot skill standpoint. And then we're going to start focusing on catching, distribution, and communication a bit more. Paul, anything specifically at U10 that comes to mind?
Yeah, I think that, it's time to start focusing on technical development. And the players start to have a desire to learn skills at this point. They want to become a little bit more adept at being able to catch balls and understand what to do in certain situations. So, but everything's still got to be with the feet. It's got to be low. You could probably do some mid-ball stuff at this point, but still if you're going to do anything high balls, I would do it very, very carefully, because there's still the kids. There's no way these kids are going to get high balls anyway. And so just try to keep everything low and have them start to defend small goals. Like what I try to do as I develop kids is have them learn to protect a 2-yard goal. That's it. Okay, that's it. Just to learn how to protect a 2-yard goal. Then once they get good at protecting a 2-yard goal, then it's moved up to 3 yards. Then have them master the 3-yard goal. And then you move it up to a 4-yard goal. That's the way you progress. When you try and throw these kids without teaching them how to move their feet, get their bodies behind the ball, and they're just trying to dive at that age, well, it doesn't make any sense. So simple collapsing, simple catching, things like the front smother catch, balls into the midsection, A simple diving one, not diving. I don't even like to call it diving. I call it controlled collapsing, where they're stepping, going to one right, stepping, going to the left. So they learn exactly how to do it in the proper way in a controlled environment. But then you can start rolling balls at them, or maybe easily hit them balls at the feet, so they can start developing those skills on moving balls, which makes a big difference. The whole thing too is that you got to make sure that as a coach, and I like saying coach instead of a trainer, because I don't believe a goalkeeper trainer should be really working with this age group. You need coaches or teachers to work with this age group so they can understand the parameters of the psychological development, the physical development, so the kids are advancing and we're supposed to. But the kids are going to make mistakes. So allow them to make mistakes. Encourage them to make the mistakes, because the problem with the young kids playing the position, that you go to a game, now the U10s might start getting to go a little bit, and then all of a sudden you're having parents yell at the kids because a ball went between their legs. Parents, coaches who don't understand the position are going to yell at the kids for doing something wrong or making a mistake. That is the absolute worst thing you can do to this age group. Because if the kids start taking a fancy for the position, you want them to really take the fancy to position and go after it. You don't want to destroy them, because it's so easy to destroy the confidence of a 10-year-old, a 9-year-old, when all they're trying to do is get out there and do something that's very difficult to do. So you have to take that in consideration as a coach. That's why it's important to have a coach do it, a mentor, a teacher, instead of just a trainer. Now, if you're a parent being thrown into that situation, okay, which happens all the time, then go to the resources to help you learn the basic stuff of what to do. And I mean, everybody can roll the ball to somebody, everybody can bounce the ball to somebody, a lot of people can kick a ball to somebody, but you got to start understanding now at 10, they're starting to become a little bit more serious about it. How do you help their mind? How do you help their spirit? How do you help them maintain their confidence? How do you build them up and not tear them down? That is such a huge portion, starting at this age group, and especially going forward. So those are some major considerations.
So Paul, I think you might have answered the question here. What is the most common mistake goalkeeper coaches make at this age, besides not allowing them to experience other positions?
I think that's a very good question. One of the major things, I think, is that a lot of coaches do quantity of things over quality. What I mean by that is, just say we're working on a low ball catch. Well, what a lot of coaches do, they just take a ball, hit it at the kid, get the ball back, hit it at the kid. You know, the kids are trying to catch the ball 10 times in 10 seconds. That is teaching absolutely nothing. All that is doing is working on a little reaction stuff, maybe a little physical fitness type of thing, but that's not teaching them how to catch the ball. The way to teach the position and how to teach technique is to slow everything down. Let the kids feel and master the finish of every catch. So that's what's lacking tremendously in a lot of coaching that I see across the board, is that the kids don't have a chance, or they're all being trained to do everything so fast that they might catch the low ball, but their catching technique might not be correct, because they're already in a hurry to go on and do the next thing. Well, that's what the coach has got to change. The coach has got to let the kids slow down and actually have them physically feel what the finishing product is supposed to be like. I like to do it where they catch the ball and they kind of put themselves through a mental checklist after catching the ball. Am I in a proper balanced finishing position? Are my hands correct? My body correct? Where are my eyes? Do all that like put yourself through a mental checklist, and then hold that finishing position for 1001 so they actually feel the position. Then you roll the ball back out. So instead of doing 10 catches in 10 seconds, maybe they do 2. But you work on making those 2 catches to perfection. That's how you learn technique. Okay, that's one of the biggest factors, is that make sure they slow the process down so the kids are actually feeling the finish, so they can master the finishes of each one of the catches you're trying to teach them.
Perfect. And I'd say, guys, with me at U10, what we're looking at from a progression standpoint is we'll have some type of playing with feet. involved in every session. And then like what Paul's hit on is like, we're going to work on the handling. So one of the big things, if you think of these young kids, is a forward goes to shoot and the parents are going crazy already because the kid's slightly out of position, right? So in handling exercises, we'll often start them out of position. They'll drop into the position, they'll get in the right spot, and then whatever, it's a low ball or what have you. So we'll work on the footwork, getting to where they need to be, the set shape, then the catching. Once we're in a pretty good spot there, that's after that, we'll build into diving. Then assuming all that stuff's going well, then we'll get into breakaways. But it should be a pretty strategic progression here.
Yeah, I think what Chad just said there was very, very, very good, that you teach them the footwork to get into position, teach them the set position, and then teach them how to do the catch. One of the biggest problems I see in goalkeepers across the board is their lack of footwork. I know Casey Keller, when he won the United States Federation's Player of the Year, which is awesome when a goalkeeper actually wins it, it's usually a field player. They asked him, why? Do you think you were the one to be able to take this award away this year? And he said, what I used to do, he said, I would twice a week, I would do 45 minutes of footwork without the ball. And I've also played all over Europe, national level, in the States. And he says, at my age now, I have basically seen everything I could possibly see, and I've learned from it all. So now I'm not surprised by anything. My experience of being in a position of all these different type of situations has made me, because I paid attention to it and I learned from him. He says, I know now where to be. There's very few situations occur in a game where I don't know what to do. But the thing I liked what he said was about how much time he practiced on his footwork. Twice a week, 45 minutes each time without the ball. And if a kid wants to increase their position exponentially, master your footwork. Quick steps forward, quick steps backwards, quick steps side to side, quick steps diagonally. And then that'll really help, because once you get the body there, if your hands do mess up, well, your body might be able to keep the ball out of the back of the net for you.
Perfect. So question for you, can U10 and U8 introduce high ball catch?
Not U8. No, I'm not a fan of that at all. Although the situations are going to, first of all, if they're playing in goal, there's no games they're supposed to be playing in goal anyway. All right. So there's no reason for them to work for high balls. It's too dangerous. They can't get their hands up in time to cover their face. Their hand-eye isn't, and their hands aren't big enough to catch that ball. So I do not agree with the U8 at all. U10, yeah, you can start doing it, but it's got to be a very controlled situation. And when you do serve balls, you either toss them. I wouldn't kick them. I would toss them so that the kids are getting a good feel for the ball in their hands. And once again, it's very important, if you're going to work the high balls at this age, have them finish the catch in the way that it's supposed to be finished. The proper hand shape around the ball, finish in a good athletic position, finish balance, and finish with their eyes. What I always say, look into the ball after it's in your hands. So get the ball in your hands like it's a crystal ball, then look into it. And once you do that, then you hold that whole thing for 1 second so you feel what the finish is. Then they can start gaining confidence to handle a higher ball. But still, I mean, the ball ripped at a kid's face at U10 level, it's still chances of breaking a wrist, getting a nose pop for the ball, because they're just not ready for that kind of a ball yet. But yeah, you can introduce it. But, I wouldn't train ripping balls at the kid's face at all. Definitely would not do that.
Perfect. Next. So U12 guys, so from a mission, right now is a time at the U12 where we really increase the commitment level to the position. So again, Paul hit on this, quality repetition is key, not just quantity. Make sure the quality is there, because we're still building a solid technical base, and proper skill mastery. Paul, what do you mean when with that terminology, proper skilled mastery?
Well, it's at this point, if you're U12, you're starting to get serious. So, and just to build on kind of what I was saying before, if let's do say now you're starting to work on the balls where you're trying to work with the contour, the diamond catch on the ball that you toss up to the chest or the face, and you're working their hands to see if they can catch the ball. If they're catching the ball and they're leaving the ball outside their body, okay, that is not the proper mastery of that skill. The proper mastery of that skill would be not bringing the ball to the body, leaving the ball out there and moving their body to the ball so they're in a proper finishing form. This is where the finished catch really matters. If you want to go from a U12 and jump into U14, you have to start mastering the finish of your catches. And I can't stress that enough. And this is also the time to start introducing what I consider sequences, where, because in a game, you don't just stand there and a ball shot at you and you stop and you catch the ball and you stop. There's always movement. There's always players that you have to position. You have to communicate. You have to catch the ball. Then you got to distribute the ball. So there's a lot of things. So I think it's important to teach in sequences. And what I mean by that is let's say I'm the goalkeeper that's working. All right, Chad serves the ball to my feet, and I do a 2-touch to another server who stops the ball and then hits me a low ball. I catch it and I distribute the ball back to Chad. Very simple little triangle activity. But in that activity, there's receiving the ball from Chad. First of all, asking for the ball back, receiving the ball from Chad, proper touches, getting my head up, finding my target, distributing the ball over to the next server with communication, doing a footwork pattern, getting into set position, catching the ball properly, finishing the catch properly, getting up, distributing the ball back to Chad with communication. So what is that? 12 functions right there, 12 different things. The problem is most coaches don't train in sequences. The whole game is sequences. So have the kids stay within each moment within those sequences, finish each moment, then go on to the next one. Because what a lot of times will happen if you have a kid, like a kid will get a ball back, pass back to their hands, and they catch it, and now they're supposed to go back over to Chad and get a ball back to the feet. Well, they might take that ball in their hand and just roll it somewhere. What good is that? You know, I mean, you take the ball, now you caught it. What is your next job in the game? Well, your next job is to distribute that ball. Well, find your target, distribute the ball properly, make sure it goes to your target with communication. Then you go on to the next thing. So I think at this age, it's extremely important for skill mastery. It involves finishing the catch properly, going through sequences and mastering each sequence. So I like to say, so like you're creating a song and you're mastering the song. You're not going to master a song unless you do every sequence properly and then finish it off, if that makes sense to you guys.
Then I like the coach's role. So be a good teacher or have a good teacher is massive. U12 for me, it's, you know, we had commit to learning the position. That's mission number one. So at this time, if you're committed to learning the position, you got to have a good teacher. So important to understand the why, not just the how. So I'll give you an example. The other day at a training session, had a kid working on some handling, and I just said, hey, you know, when you drop the ball, let's make sure we finish it. So like if it hits off his hand, boom, I want him to go dive on it. So he understands how to dive on it, you know, take a step, shoot the hands and head, boom. And for me, if you guys look, if you're the forward coming this way, he dove on it like this. So he dove correctly. And I just said, hey, are you in a good position there? And he's like, you know, I finished it. I dove, blah, blah, blah. I said, no, your head's in a spot now to get kicked by the forward. So what would you change? You know, and then he switches over like that. I said, perfect. So that's just a detail where a kid, once they understand the why, like, why do I do something? You've heard Paul talk on finishing the catch. All right. So for me, catching the ball just like this, I don't love that because I want to be set and balanced. Then I can move my feet. So for me, what it's reflecting, if I'm catching then moving my feet behind, moving my body behind the ball, that means my timing, my set's good. All these different details that add up to make me even a better shot stopper when it's hit upper 90. So understanding the why and not just the how. And I'd encourage, for the kids that are on here, like ask the coach why. If it makes sense to you, there's a lot better likelihood that you're saying, okay, yeah, I'll do that then. If the coach gives you a bad explanation, I'd ask some more then.
Yeah, it's spot on, Chad. Being a good teacher helps the kids understand why. And I've always believed that if a goalkeeper understands why they're doing something, then it's going to make sense to them, and then they're going to do it. It's when the people tell them to do it, and they're going, "Oh, I don't understand why. I don't get it." That's where a good teacher comes in. You got to make sure these kids understand the importance of the moment and why that moment is so important and why it should be done a certain way. Once they do it, you got them.
So from an ability expectation at U12, guys, what we've seen statistically is this age group right here concedes the most goals out of any from a breakaway standpoint. Right. So at this point, I think it's very important. We're good with we're in a good spot with our set position, our handling's in a good spot, our footwork, moving side to side, laterally, etc., is in a good spot. For me, my diving has to be in a good spot for my breakaways to be in a good spot. So at this point through U12, we should get into, let me admit this person, we should at this point have done a decent amount of training on breakaways or 1v1s. We should have done a decent amount where we feel pretty comfortable with shot stopping. And those are the main things we're going to run into at this point. If you guys see communication or leadership, now I'm going to tell you goalkeepers, especially you young ones on here, like U10, can we start some type of communication at that point? If you're saying, hey, coach, I don't know what to say, reach out to us and we'll send you a little printout of what things you should be saying. Because what happens at U14 is these coaches expect you to be communicating and being a leader on the field on a regular basis. If we expect to turn that faucet on one day, it's not going to work too well.
Yeah, that's a great point, Chad. A way you can start a simple communication is asking for the ball to be played back to your feet. And after you catch the ball, communicate when you roll the ball out or throw the ball out or pass the ball out to a teammate. Now, the word I hate is here. Because if you go to a kid's game and you hear 20 people out on the field all yelling here, I never know who wants the ball. Goalkeepers cannot afford that type of generality. We have to be specific, because if we make a mistake in the communication and don't ask for the ball or ask for it in the wrong place or the wrong way, it could result in a goal or a turnover or something that could be detrimental to the team. So I always like saying the word yes, right foot, yes, left foot, yes, in a person's name. That way it makes it very specific, because yes is a good word. Here to me is impersonal. I don't like the word ball either. I hear people say ball me, and I hate that, because a ball is an inanimate object. You're dealing with human beings here. The lessons of communication are using a name, looking at somebody, and saying something positively. And once these kids learn how to do that, then they're going to have better communication skills overall. I always tell the kids, whenever you come in, when a coach talks to you, look them in the eye. And it's amazing how kids have trouble doing that today. Matter of fact, it's amazing how many people have trouble doing it today. Look at somebody in the eye, give them respect that you are listening to them and you respect what they're saying, and they should expect the same return. When you shake somebody's hand, the same thing. Look them in the eye. It's the eye contact that makes a major part of your communication successful. So insist upon that simple lesson in your goalkeeper training and use simple words like yes, name, something clear, distinct, simple in all your distributions and all the times you ask for the ball back to you. That's a great simple way just to start the process, because kids are scared to death to communicate because they're afraid they're going to say the wrong thing. And like Chad was saying, once you get to 14, U14, now you're expected to do it. You're expected to do it. So start at the younger age. And you can start that with U8s. You know, back in the day, I used to just do a line drill, get 3 kids in one line, facing 3 kids in the other. And they would just roll the ball across saying yes in the person's name. And the other person would catch it and they'd say, roll the ball, yes, Chad, on the way back. What it does also, it helps everybody get to know everybody else's names, which is very helpful. And then people start getting used to the fact that they say yes on all your distributions, and it really works.
All right, so U14. So the mission here, we're starting to transition into the adult game. So physically, we're going to go through some changes now. So we should develop some more quickness, explosiveness. The mental part of the game is going to change a little bit, in that I think it almost gets bigger. Attention to details, it's just massive. I'm not going to bore you guys on going over this. But when we say attention to details, the group I had, it was a week and a half ago, great session, guys. If it was 3% better, that's it, 3% better, man, it would have been unreal. So just attention to those little details, then strong commitment to the team. Paul, when you say strong commitment to the team, what do you mean?
The fact that now that they are committing themselves to a major role in the team's success, in its chemistry, in its functioning. It makes them become part of a group. The group, this is where goalkeepers need to develop a little bit more. They need to become a major part of the chemistry of the team, whether it's having fun when you're supposed to have fun, bringing people into center when they need to be brought into center. Like I'll call a group of goalkeepers in after water break and say, come on in. A couple kids will run over, a couple kids will jog, some will walk like they don't even really care. That bothers me. Okay. So I say, when they've put the numbers of the players on the field before the game, 1 through 11, what's our number? Well, they all got that. They all say number 1. I says, well, yeah. Now, but being number 1 is a major responsibility. Okay, it carries it's a big weight. So you have to do things differently. You've got to carry yourself differently. You have to be the first in. The coach calls you, I'm first one there. If you ask to pick up the ball, I'm the first one there. If you do that, then you are developing your character to be able to handle the role of leadership and exit by example. And it's a big responsibility, but guess what? That's what this position is all about. The weight of the game is on your shoulders. If you're a good leader in the back, you can run the show, you can build your team up, you can make spot on distributions, you can make the big saves, you can control the box, you can do all these things and communicate, be a leader, demonstrate good character, then you're going to be successful. Okay. And the chance of the team catching on to that is probably going to be pretty good as well. So this is the time when the tide turns down. All right. I'm going to be serious. I want to get into this. So you have to have, this is where a mentor is extremely important, not just a trainer anymore. I mean, trainers can teach kids to catch and this and that. But now you got to start taking these kids and molding their character. And that's the difference. That's where, and from this point forward, it's all about that, developing your character, understanding the game, being a leader, reading situations, and all these types of things that come up to when it becomes more complex. But this is a major age for that right now.
Yeah. And so at this age at U14, we should have a pretty good understanding of all the techniques that are expected of us. And we should be at a spot where we're really chasing them down to get them consistently dialed in. what Paul mentioned, it was either the U8 or the U10 level, to focus on technique, it's got to be kind of slow, right? So what happens in the learning process, we start slow, and you have to think in order to execute, which is why it's slow. And then we should now at the U14 age have a lot of that stuff down because we've thought slow, we've done repetitions, we've built the muscle memory, and now we should be executing this at a very good pace now. At this time, distribution under pressure. So again, starting at U8, we're talking about playing with feet a lot. That U8 to U14, that time frame, we should have pretty good confidence now with our feet. And Paul hit on, guys, something I think is massive, and I hope all you guys around this age group really understand what he was talking about with like the strong commitment to the team and having a mentor, because we're not just looking at you as a goalkeeper. The characteristics of a good goalkeeper are very, very, very simple. All right. You have to be the leader. You have to be willing to take risks. You have to be aggressive. You have to work hard, right? We have normal training, we have goalkeeper training. So anyways, there with like then leadership and communication, again, must. Accountability, that goes into the characteristics, understanding the game. So tactically, this is a big road bump in this age group. All right. So understanding the game, why do I, if I receive from this side, why do I look to my 6 or why do I go out over there? Time and score, the game management pieces, massive at the U14 age group. Controlling the area. So what that's referring to now is crosses, okay? And getting back U8, Paul said, no, we don't want you messing with high balls. U10, we can start to introduce some of that. The U14, so U13, U14, we're going to start to see a ton more high balls and crosses. So if you guys remember before around U12, at that age group, the primary amount of goals are coming from, or the large portion of the goals are coming from breakaways. Now crosses is getting introduced to the game, which is another dangerous one. So controlling the area is important. Now, this piece too, like this is parents and kids, is controlling emotions. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves in this position. And the reason why we do that is because if we make a mistake, a lot of times there's a goal. Right. So what we do is very, very important. I also think it's very important that your mentality is what it needs to be. And again, we're doing a roadmap. This is a process, right? If you're not making mistakes, you're probably not going to get better. All right. So if you just stay in your comfort zone, you're not going to get better. Right. So be okay making mistakes. You need to tell yourself that's a part of the process. So from an emotional standpoint, for me, it's like, hey, I made that mistake. I should have done this. I'll make sure it doesn't happen next time. I'm not going to dig in and get into my feelings a whole lot or get too upset, because guess what? I know it's going to happen. Like I know I'm going to make mistakes. And then at this time too, competition wise, look, at U14, things get super competitive. I think Manny was asking about his U13 kid, if he should bring him over to MLS Next right now. So U13, U14 starts to get super, super competitive. So
could we go right back for a second, Chad? Yeah, the controlling the emotions, a big role here is the parents. If a kid is emotionally has difficulty emotionally controlling, handling the mistakes, parents can really help here. I think one of the problems is that parents depend on coaches to develop their kids in this position and kind of wash their hands of the situation. And just going to say, listen, this coach will take care of it. He'll teach him everything. Well, yes and no. Parents should learn the position right along as the kids are learning it, because that way they can support them a little bit better. The parents should understand whys as much as the kids. That way, if the thing I hate is going to a game and then hearing parents who don't know what the hell they're talking about because the ball went through a goalkeeper's legs. They did, who knows what is going on in that situation under pressure, except for that goalkeeper. And the parents are yelling at the kid. The kid sucks, he can't catch a ball. And you know what that does to a kid? It destroys him. So on the ride home, if the parent has no idea at all what that kid is going through, then you can't really be of help. So as a parent of a goalkeeper, I believe you had a responsibility to learn as much about the position as you possibly can. So you can at least have some type of a intelligent conversation, for lack of a way of putting it, on the ride home to help the kid deal with certain things. Because I'll tell you what, when you make a mistake as a goalkeeper, you're dead alone. You are dead alone. And I know the players come up and pat you on the back, and the coaches say blah, blah, blah. But guess what? It hits you hard. So you need a really tremendous support system around you to handle all of that.
All right, so U16 through U18, critical growth and development period. So, Paul, when you're saying growth and development period, what do you think the main, like, what are we seeing from a growth and development standpoint? Where do you think that happens primarily?
It happens in because the bodies are still changing a lot. Okay, you got some kids come into that age and their hormones are maybe just starting to kick in. Other kids have already become stronger and faster, quicker. So everybody has to understand their own role in their own development, how fast they're growing, how fast their development. So it takes, you got to kind of understand your role and where you are and be able to accept that role, but realizing you're going to change and you're going to get better and you're going to grow and you're going to develop. Development has to be in the game itself. Not only like Chad was saying, right now your technique has got to be pretty much down. If you're fumbling and bumbling your technique right now, you can't think about the game. You can't think about the tactical applications because you're trying to worry about what leg goes up in a high ball situation. Should I, how are my hands supposed to be? You got all these thoughts going through your head where you should have just a feel now of what to do in certain situations. That's how much you got to master your technique. So now everything becomes the game. That's where the growth and development occurs. Now you're still going to have growth and development physically, but you're going to have growth and development mentally. You're going to have growth and development emotionally. How do I handle things now? Because the competition's dead on now. One of the worst things I see in club situations was just one goalkeeper playing. I think that does a disservice to the goalkeeper. You need competition. And I'll tell you what, goalkeepers love competition. And it's always better to have somebody pushing you instead of you skating into a situation. I've actually heard college coaches go and recruit goalkeepers, says, you're going to come in, you are going to be my starter for the next 4 years. That is the absolute worst thing you can tell a kid. Because now the kid's probably not going to train as hard. He or she's going to come in and just skate through, and they're never going to reach their potential. The thing about this age right now in the growth and development is reaching your potential as a 15-year-old, as a 16-year-old, as a 17-year-old, as an 18-year-old. Reach your potential. Get there. Because now the next jump is college. It's a different game because now you're playing against men and women. You're not just playing against people your own age. So this is a very, very important age across the board. You must take care of yourself physically. You must take care of yourself mentally. You must make your good decisions in your life. You must be a good student in school. Don't make stupid decisions with your group of friends, and it's going to cause you a problem and could affect how what might what happened to your future. All these things come into play now, and that's one of the reasons why I actually love the goalkeeper position. Because I tell people the reason why I teach it, because if you can handle all the ups and downs of this position, if you can learn to be a leader, if you can develop your character, if you can communicate, be a good human being, you're going to be okay in life.
Yes.
And I honestly believe that. That's why I teach the position. And I know that's guys like Chad and anybody else in our board and then in the goalkeeper union and the UGKA do it as well. is because we see something that's more important than just playing the position in the game. It's all about taking people to a different level and have success, enjoy the game, and enjoy their lives, and be better role models for people across the board. So all that comes into play now. Now, here's something that people have to consider. Sometimes you get a kid who might have been a field player and now is 16 years old or 15 years old and now wants to become a goalkeeper. Well, I would never turn anybody away from that, because a lot of really good goalkeepers and professional and national goalkeepers never got into position until late. A lot of them were strikers, but they just have to work harder now. They have to work harder on mastering the skills that all these other people have been developing for hopefully, 8 years, 6 to 8 years. So it's a whole different thing now. It's a very exciting time. As a coach and as a mentor, it's tremendously rewarding, because you can really develop these kids and really push them to a different level and help them reach their potentials, which is very cool.
So a couple things that Paul hit on for me, 3 big items I think to focus on at this time is decision making.
Mm-hmm.
Then from a physical standpoint, this is for me where the weight room goes a long way.
Yeah.
16 to 18 age group, putting the time in the weight room, that's where you can get a 10, 15, 25% return on your efforts. Then the mental, and we hit on a bit at the U14. For me, mental, the U14 through the U18 is massive. And understanding this is a process, the expectation is not perfection all the time. And what we're doing is we're chasing that down. We're identifying the areas that we need to get better, and we're chasing that down. So again, mental, physical, decision making. Then just to wrap up, guys, I'm going to quit sharing my screen and let's hit on some questions and see if you guys have any thoughts on that stuff. So 1 second here. Let me bring this up. All right. So questions here. I've seen some goalkeeper coaches use strings, poles above the ground to work on extension dives by jumping/diving over them. Do you utilize those tools for extension dives? And if so, is there an age that is appropriate for training? Paul, do you do any of that?
No.
I don't either. For me, I'll use poles with a rope to focus on diving, actually low ball dives and driving the head forward.
Me too.
So going over, like, it has benefits. For me, I try to limit the equipment that I use. And that's not all the time, but a lot of times the only equipment that I use is mannequins, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Yeah. The back in the day, they would have kids jump over barrels and how many bodies can they jump over to catch a ball and all that kind of crazy stuff. And that's just craziness, I think that's kind of a test of how, crazy might be. But there are ways of learning to do things. First of all, I believe that in training goalkeepers, you should try to train them to master a 4-yard goal maximum. Okay. Now, if you figure our goals are 8 yards wide, so if you're standing in the center and you can go 2 yards to your right or 2 steps to your left very quickly, that's a 4-yard goal that you're mastering. That means you got 2 yards on either side of that goes from there to the post, if you can understand what I'm saying. Well, if you can master your footwork and other stuff over those 4 yards, and you take 2 quick steps to your right, you have to get to the post. That's just courage. That's just going. It's very difficult to try and teach somebody to move laterally 4 yards to go from the center of goal all the way to the post. So, I mean, it's a lot of that stuff just comes natural. The kids are going to fly anyway. I mean, you really don't have to do too much. It's worth, working on balls where they have to fly, leave their feet to get the ball, to learn how to use the ball to break their fall and that kind of thing. but to jump over things, and because what happens, they start thinking about the thing you're jumping over instead of the ball, what they're going for. And that's kind of defeats the purpose a little bit. But it's another way of teaching it. I guess it works for some people, and I've seen it work as well, but that's something I don't do either. I'm like Chad, I'll do it sometimes to get the kids to get their heads down to get a ball low balls, because that's a problem. A lot of low balls, the kids don't get their heads down. But
So here's one for you. Gloves. Finger saves always or optional?
well, I think that sometimes the younger kids, it's probably good to wear finger saves and bust their hands up, because the worst thing you can have is a kid, jam their fingers up, break their fingers, when they're 9, 10-year-old kid. Now they got to battle with that and get back in goal. And I don't know if I want to do this anymore because I jam my fingers up. But a lot of the glove situation, as far as I'm concerned, is what feels comfortable. Some kids like to have the flexibility in their hands so they can feel the ball in their hands. Some kids want the finger saves protected. Well, then fine. It's whatever the kid wants. If they want to try the finger saves and it works for them, okay. It might come a point where they say, no, it's too stiff now. I'd like to have more flexibility. And then let them change. I don't think you should try and push a kid one way or the other. If they are afraid, okay, let them give it a stiffer glove. Let them go to finger save, just so that they build up the confidence of being able to go after balls, without hurting themselves.
So I'm not a finger save person. I do think at the younger ages, there's definitely some value. Around U12 and up, I'll typically recommend no finger saves. But there are those situations where there's kids that it does make sense. And unfortunately, jamming the fingers, hurting the fingers is not uncommon for our position. So a lot of our kids, they'll tape their fingers. Next one. It seems like the progression of striker or field players is pushed so much more as compared to developing a goalkeeper. Does that put the goalie at a disadvantage?
Yeah. Well, one of the big things that we do here at the United Goalkeeper Alliance, one of our big pushes is to develop a goalkeeper culture. And that is what is tremendously lacking. And that kind of refers to exactly what that question is. So much, when the word I'm looking for, a lot of things are pushed towards the attacking part of the game. And the glory of being the golden boot, the goal scorer and those kinds of things, where you cannot play without us. You cannot be a successful team if you don't have a goalkeeper. And that's one of the things with the position. It's a thankless job in a lot of cases. We work harder than anybody else does. The things we do are completely different than anybody else does. We have to handle more mental and emotional aspects of the game, unlike any other player does. I'm not saying other players don't, but nobody is under the pressure in the game than goalkeepers. So it's all about, can a club develop more a better goalkeeper culture? Can they give them more support? Can they get them whatever they can do for them, give an area to train in instead of pushing them off to the side? You guys go down there in the corner and just kick the ball at each other. Not even supplying goalkeeper coaches. I mean, come on. You have colleges and universities that don't have goalkeeper coaches. Or you have colleges and universities will have a senior come in who just graduated, be a graduate assistant, and they expect a kid who played for 4 years, okay, might have been an outstanding player, but is that person a mentor now? Is that person able at 22 years old to be able to start mentoring other people underneath them? That takes years of experience. So these are the types of things that clubs have to consider. And it's one of my biggest things on, the bandwagon I'm on now, is to try to develop goalkeeper cultures in clubs. Try to get clubs to stand up and say, we are not good enough in taking care of our goalkeepers. It's an afterthought when it's got to be the opposite. Remember the number, it's number one. So we got to take care of them better than anybody else.
And Dan, to that question, I agree with you. But I like it. There's a piece of me that likes that what you said there is correct. And because for me, I know if I put in extra effort and my kids put in extra effort, it distinguishes them. So the truth is, if you're playing a pretty good game and you get scored on, or there's a scoring opportunity, what we have to do is save our team. So I'm really big when we get to a certain point, like whatever your excuse is, you can take that somewhere else. And what I'm looking for is solutions only. And I tell my kids that all the time, like, get the job done, get the job done, And so for me, I think that negative is also a massive positive. Last question. I know I had one from Manny back here. Let me see. What's your take on keeper wars? Are they beneficial, or does good luck play a part? Let me get into this. Keeper wars is fun. Keeper wars is not it's not like a development type thing, in my opinion. It's like, it's funsies. So for me, I think there's pieces that could be really bad that it encourages. For example, cheating, right? If Paul's right-footed and his body language says he's shooting to my right and I'm cheating, and that's an educated guess, that might work against Paul, but that might not work a lot of times in a game. And especially when you're getting up to these older age groups, they're going to crush you. Again, I think it's fun. Another positive is, for me, anytime I do it, like I'll do, okay, you can only score with feet. Now you can only score with hands. So really focusing on making them have to be really good at certain types of distribution. Let's say we've added a drop kick to a lot of kids. You can only score with a drop kick now. So we can have fun, but we're working on specific tools. I don't know if it's a net positive or a net negative. I'm pretty neutral. But it does check the fun box, which again is very important.
Yeah, the only thing I want to say in adding to that is that it's competition, and you'll see very quickly who's competitive and who is not. And anytime goalkeepers can compete, it's a good thing, I think. But once again, I agree totally with what Chad is saying. It's as far as developing, it developed very bad habits, to be honest with you. And but it is a fun game, and if they take it that way and they compete and have fun, good. Enjoy yourselves, because it is a very competitive and fun game.
Last one, then we'll get out of here. And I love this question. Manny's asking, is it too crazy to allow the goalkeeper to take penalty kicks or free kicks if he's good at it? Do you have any thoughts on that, Paul?
Let him take them.
Look, my goalkeepers, I had a batch of 3 girls, the last 3 girls that have come through our club. They would take free kicks going in more or less all 3/4 of the field. So if it was like around the 18 and in, they wouldn't take that. But any ball that was served in, they were taking all those. Penalty kicks, we've had a handful of our goalkeepers that take penalty kicks in live games. That right there, you're flirting with, if it's saved, which the likelihood's not high, but if it is saved, that's a long way for us goalkeepers to run. We're not used to running 3/4 of the field or 80% of the field. So, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm a big fan. I agree. And besides, when a goalkeeper goes up and then serves the ball in, and it results in a goal, or they take a penalty kick result, what a good thing for the mentality of the goalkeeper. That really solidifies themselves in the team and the team culture and everything else. So yeah, I'm fine with that. That's for sure. Especially if they can do a good job at it. What the heck?
Well, guys, hey, thank you so much for your time. So if you have any feedback on this, if there's any more information you want, there's a ton of details that we didn't bother getting into, but if there's anything that you think is valuable that we missed, please let us know. And again, thank you guys for your time tonight.
Yeah, thank you. Enjoyed it. And actually, Chad, I really enjoyed working with you. And I enjoyed having a chance to speak in front of you all. So good luck. If anything we can do to help you out, let us know.
Thank you guys.